This interview was recorded on August 25th, 2025. Larry McCormick, founder of Marching Bands of America, suffered a major stroke shortly after recording this interview. Earlier this week, we spoke with the family, and Larry McCormick is currently in rehabilitation, making progress each day. The family appreciates your positive thoughts and prayers toward a full recovery. Hi, and welcome to Joining Us, celebrating 50 years of Bands of America. My name is Chuck Henson, and for 35 of those 50 years, I was the primary public address announcer for Bands of America's series of regional and the Grand National Marching Band Championships. Now, over the course of the next 25 episodes, I'm going to do my very best to bring you the people and stories that ultimately have created the excellence that is BOA.
I just was fascinated by this man's marketing ability and the idea that he was putting together a national organization.
Well, one was having hamburgers directly across the table from Dr. Ravelli. So I'm literally watching him eat a hamburger thinking, that's William D. Ravelli having a hamburger in front of me.
Back when Marching Bands of America began in 1975, I and my high school marching band were one of the first to participate.
10 years after the experience, I'm still hearing from kids who thought that was one of the coolest things they ever got to do.
I mean, when you went joining us, those kids went nuts right then. You could have read out of a phone book from that point on. You had them.
They're just going to blow the roof off the place. Like, I get chills thinking about it.
The rifles would spin rifles, then they would catch them and they would fall on the ground at the end of the tune.
Like a death drop.
Yeah.
What's in your blood? If you cut my arm, I'll bleed Bands of America, Music for All.
What Marching Bands of America started was innovative, so new, so exciting.
50 years, a half century? Are you kidding me?
Happy 50th anniversary to Bands of America.
So get your program, find a great seat here in our virtual stadium, and get ready to learn everything you ever wanted to know about Bands of America.
Joining us from Bellbrook, Ohio.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chuck Henson. Well, if it's Thursday, it's got to be another edition of Joining Us. This journey that we're on, trying to put together 50 years of Bands of America history, wouldn't be possible without the man that we're about to speak to today. And I know I've said it before that I'm most excited to talk to this person, but there really wouldn't be a Joining Us podcast. There wouldn't be a Music for All. There wouldn't be a Bands of America. There wouldn't be a Marching Bands of America if there hadn't been a McCormick's Enterprises. So joining me today is literally the man. Please welcome Larry McCormick. Larry, how are you, my friend?
Hi, Chuck, buddy. Good to talk to you.
Where are you at today?
Where am I at? I'm sitting in my office, just have some notes here and been thinking a whole lot about what we should talk about.
Do you enjoy still live out west or have you moved closer?
We live in Crystal Lake. Yeah.
Oh, you're in Crystal Lake now because you were out in Arizona for a while, weren't you? Or New Mexico? Or?
We had a second home in Nevada.
That's right. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Well, Larry, first of all, on behalf of myself and every single person who's listened to every word of this podcast, thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you've done to make what we're talking about today even possible. And I want to begin there. Tell me a little bit about you and your love of music and music education before we get into anything else.
Okay. So I have a little ancient history that I will share with you.
Sure.
So ancient history is, for what it's worth, I'm a product of the band world and the drum and bugle corps world. And I had been in band and also marched with the Cavaliers Drum Corps in the 50s. And in the 50s, things were a little different. And bands only performed halftime shows, marched in parades, and did that sort of thing. Which leads me partially to what we're going to talk about, because coming from the drum corps world, we pursued excellence. Perfection was what we went after, and that was what totally affected my life, gave me the discipline that I needed to get started with. And of course, during that time, drum and bugle corps and the bands were like oil and water.
Really? There was a definite division between drum corps and marching band?
Oh, absolutely. My high school band director was constantly on my case because I kind of wanted to bring all of the drum corps stuff to our band, and he resisted that with a passion. And of course, my older brother was 10 years ahead of me in the band at Schurz High School in Chicago, where I met my wife. And we, in the drum and bugle corps world, we competed, which was totally different from the band world at that time that only played in parades and played halftime shows. So I always had this kind of thing in my brain that there's more to this than just doing the halftime shows and trying to entertain a crowd for a football game.
What years were you in Cavaliers, Larry?
I marched 54 through 56 before I went to the U of I to get my first music degree. And my teacher, Frank Arsenault, was my mentor.
Wow. That's a name you just mentioned there, Frank Arsenault.
He was the inspiration that said, if I could play like he played, I would be wonderful. So he was my inspiration. And he's the one that worked for Ludwig Drum Company. He was on the road a lot. So after we went to school, finished my undergrad degree at the U of I thought I wanted to be a college percussion teacher.
I was going to ask, you were an education major, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So we went to the University of Arkansas and earned a graduate teaching degree and realized at that time while I was teaching at that university, and I was like, they knew nothing about percussion. I was a god to them. So, yeah.
You're a god to many people.
Yeah. But I realized after we spent a year there, and actually that's where our son Scott was born at Arkansas, when Joy was pregnant, and we decided to come back to Chicago.
You're teaching at the University of Arkansas as a TA, you were saying, right? So
Right.
then you come back to Chicago. Are you looking for a teaching gig then in Chicago?
Right. So I thought I didn't want to teach high school because I don't want to have to deal with a marching band.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Well,
I looked.
Okay, wait, let me stop you for a second.
Yeah.
What was so repellent about the marching bands of Chicago?
Well, I knew how much time that would take.
Okay.
And
Okay.
of course, in those days, the marching bands were not like I wanted to be, the quality that I wanted to see.
Because I was about to say the irony of all ironies is that your whole life ended up revolving around high school band programs after that.
Yeah, well, there we go.
Yeah.
So anyways, coming back from Arkansas, and I need to tell you about this. My wife, Joy, we met in a high school band in Chicago at Schurz High School.
Yeah. Joy is lovely, lovely.
Joy has been the right arm of McCormick's Enterprises, of Larry McCormick, of all of our family. So she is the one who is the helpmate to me and has been through all my life. So
you get back to Chicago and now you're looking for a gig. You're not really interested in a high school gig. Where did you end up? Is that when you decided to start the store?
actually, I had so much interest in percussion because I had come out of the Cavaliers. I was starting to design some products and things for mallets and beaters. So
Really?
yeah, I actually, when we moved to Elgin, it was my first teaching gig, Abbott Junior High School in Elgin, Illinois. Yeah. And I set up a lathe in my garage in the home we just bought. And I decided to create a mallet for rudimental bass drum. So I was whittling away on the lathe, designing this mallet. And that was my first beater mallet.
So that was the first basic product that you created? Was it drumstick for bass drum?
Rudimental bass drum, right.
Now explain what rudimental bass drum is to me, because I'm a color guard person. So
Okay, so rudimental bass drum is a bass drummer who plays with two beaters,
okay,
and they play rudiments. So they play all the technical stuff that snare drummers play without the rolls.
that I would have heard when I was in drum corps, the drum lines warming up to and using those as rehearsal techniques, right?
Sure. And
Okay.
my lines, when we came back to Chicago, Frank Arsenault was not able to continue teaching the Cavaliers. And he said, I think the Cavaliers should hire you, Larry McCormick, to be their instructor. So in end of 1962, I started as the percussion instructor for the Cavaliers.
So the very man that you idolized as a teacher
Yeah.
is the one who got you the job at the Cavaliers.
He's the one who recommended me.
Wow.
Right.
You must have felt you'd come full circle at that point.
Right. So I had a master's degree. I got very active in the judging community, so I started judging groups.
For drum corps.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the success of the Cavalier line that I had, we won 10 national titles while I was there.
Wow.
I think 10 total.
Wow.
Yeah. And much of that was attributed to our drum section because the scores of our percussion were always higher than the others.
So this entire time you're teaching the Cavaliers, you've gotten a job basically given to you by the man who meant everything to you as a percussionist. And this entire time in your garage, you're basically whittling away, creating drumsticks for people to use for their bass drum lines?
Right. Yes. As well as I created another snare drum stick and started to produce those and have those produced for me from ProMark, who created my S1 snare drum stick. And because of the success of the Cavaliers, it seems like everybody in the country wanted me to start teaching them. So I was teaching corps throughout the country.
Wow.
And everywhere I went, they became their state champion. So.
And were you basically peddling your sticks at the same time? Or were the sticks were they the Larry McCormick sticks, or were they branded by ProMark and those sort of companies?
No, they were McCormick model sticks.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, I had written a couple of books. So I wrote my first book, which was called Precision Drumming, which was actually the system that Frank Arsenault taught. So
wow.
I created the book to use that book as a system, and also published a couple other books. So I was doing a lot of things in addition to teaching the corps. And it resulted in my being in Elgin on my second job. They switched me to the other side of the city to another location and decided at the end of my year and a half, almost 2 years of teaching, that they weren't going to give me tenure. So I was like crushed.
Wow.
But realized that I was been spending more time teaching the Cavaliers than I was in my job.
As a middle school band director, yeah.
Right. So next job came along was in West Chicago. So I went to West Chicago Junior High, and I taught there for 4 years while I was starting to develop more things, more products, starting to sell drums to those corps that I taught.
These were products that you created. This is like your drum we're talking about.
Well, no, actually, I was working with the drum company. So one of the major drum companies that came to the Cavaliers was Rogers Drums.
Okay.
So we started to use Rogers snare drums, which Frank was not happy with that because he was working for Ludwig.
Uh-oh. Well, we know how those sort of brand controversies can be created.
Yes, indeed.
So does your garage becoming now a sort of a warehouse at your home?
No, it wasn't that far yet.
Okay.
Yeah. It was not large enough to do that. I just had a lathe that I borrowed from one of the manufacturers.
Wow.
Interestingly enough, all of my contacts with the judging world created lots of communications and people that we connected with. So just numerous wonderful, incredible judges and people who were judging drum corps also could judge bands. So,
well, yeah, at some point I've got to think you thought to yourself, okay, this business that I've created on my own, making sticks, selling drums for other people. At some point, do you think to yourself, hey, this is something that maybe I should be doing? I've got a reputation. Let's do this more. Let's do this full time.
Well, actually, I left my job in West Chicago to go on the road teaching drum corps.
Okay.
So I took a year, traveled to Michigan, Wisconsin. I taught the Scouts. I taught the Blue Stars.
That warms my heart, Larry. You know that.
Yeah. I taught corps in Ohio. I taught corps in Iowa. And I wrote music for even people like the Troopers. And one of the pieces I remember writing for the Troopers, Fred Sanford was playing the bass drum parts that I wrote. So
wow.
When Fred was still in the Troopers. So
yeah.
Oh
my gosh.
So all of these people that I met through that relationship of judging and traveling to all these corps just led to more and more things. So next piece was I was very involved with the manufacturers now. So Remo Belli, who was Remo Incorporated,
Sure.
took some ads out on some drum solos that I published. So he took the back covers of the drum solos and...
Oh, so you published a piece of music and he's running an ad on the back of the score?
Right. Yeah. So I was involved with writing, publishing, doing all sorts of things. So
how did that feel? How did that feel growing in that way? Because clearly now you're going down a path that's leading you to where we're all headed.
Yeah.
Are you thinking to yourself, yeah, this feels good. This feels like where I need to be?
Well, yeah. And I was starting to have some, I left West Chicago teaching every day at the end of the day to go home to open my mail to see if there were checks in the mail. Yeah. Because people were ordering my sticks and products and things. And I also got connected with some people from the Percussive Arts Society, which Remo was developing that new organization, met Al Payson from the Chicago Symphony. And Al Payson and I started to create more mallets and beaters. So he would make beaters in his basement that I sold as part of my McCormick stick line.
Wow.
So Remo Belli, all of these people from the industry were becoming my friends and relationships. So I was just immersed in all of this.
That's incredible. To think that as you're creating things in your garage, let me just back up a minute, because you don't really think about how something gets started. We think of a drumstick today. There's a factory that makes a drumstick. That's a drumstick. Here's your drumstick.
Right.
You made a drumstick in your garage using a piece of equipment that you literally whittled it out of a block. I mean, what type of wood do you use for those?
Hickory. Yeah.
Sticks are all hickory?
Pretty much hickory. Yeah. My stick, the S1, was made out of white oak. They made it in Japan. And ProMark I'd order 1,000 pair at a time, and they'd ship them over, and we'd get them and sell them.
And now your garage is looking like a warehouse, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well, from there, we moved to Elk Grove Village.
Okay.
And I had a bigger garage. Yeah.
Now, Elk Grove Village is the name that I associate with McCormick's Enterprises.
Right. So that's where our kids went to school. Scott and Kevin went to school at Elk Grove High School before we moved to Barrington. So I had a bigger house then, and I was meeting with lots of the people from the drum corps world, and we're talking about the formation of DCI. So Jim Jones, who was the director of the Troopers, Don Warren, who was the director of the Cavaliers, were my good friends, as well as many other corps directors that I knew. So we had a meeting in my basement. Actually, the lower floor, it wasn't a basement, it was a lower level.
Like a split level sort of thing. Yeah.
Right. So we had a meeting with several of those people. I think Bill Howard was even there because I was teaching Madison at the time, the Scouts.
Yep.
And we talked about forming DCI.
Wow.
And Jim Jones and Don Warren got together and said, we've had enough of the veterans organizations. Let's do our own thing. So DCI got formed. There we go.
Drum Corps International, as we know it today, was started in your home?
I don't think it started there, but I was part of talking it up with the people. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, the initial, hey, kids, let's put on a show sort of thing. Wow.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we go on our own, right?
And would you have had a role in that new organization? Or were you just the conduit to which they had the conversation?
Yeah. My company was starting to grow, and because I was close to lots of manufacturers, Olds was starting to produce bugles, okay? And I had the first opportunity with a guy by the name of Zig Canstel, who designed the Olds bugles, and he taught a drum corps in California. So we got together, and I was able to get the franchise to start selling the Olds bugles to drum corps. So I was starting my business was just booming. So this was the 60s.
And there were literally hundreds of drum corps across the country in the 60s. I mean, every town had one, right?
Nah, I'm not sure there's hundreds, but close to 100 maybe. All the veterans organizations had one or two.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many that have now gone the wayside. All the little tiny towns that had their own little drum corps. I guess those would have all been part of the VFW system, though.
Yeah, so there was the Legion and the VFW. Those were the two organizations that supported drum corps.
And now they're all coming to you to buy horns.
Yes. Yeah. Even the Hawthorne Caballeros bought bugles from McCormick.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. I remember them driving in with a truck to my facility. I'm renting a facility now in Elk Grove Village, a warehouse.
Yeah.
And it was loaded with bugles. So I remember the guys coming in from the Caballeros drove all the way in from New Jersey.
Hawthorne, right? Isn't that where they were from? Hawthorne, New Jersey?
Hawthorne, New Jersey, right.
Yep.
Senior Corps. So with those kinds of sales, I was starting to make some real money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you began thinking, okay, well, we've got horns, I've got drumsticks. Now we need to do more things. At what point do you start integrating color guard and flags and podium? I mean, McCormick's Enterprises became the go-to place for anything band related.
Yes. When I think back to that time slot, the 60s, the success of the Cavaliers blossomed things for me, opened doors for me to lots of places and people and manufacturers. We decided that the warehouse that I was renting was not big enough. So we built a building.
Wow.
In Elk Grove Village, our first building, 1570 Lewis. So we had our office and I was starting to build a team of talented people.
Give me some of the names. Do you recall who was on that team?
My first sales manager, you ever hear the name of Don Pescioni?
Really?
Don Pescioni came to work for me from working for a cement factory.
Wow.
I hired him away from that to come be my sales manager. And this was before DCI was formalized.
Yeah.
And as time was going on in the next year and a half, Don was being recruited by the people who were forming DCI to become their director.
That's right. He was the first. He was the first executive director, right?
Yeah. So they hired him behind my back.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah. It was all a big secret. When I found out about it that he was going to leave, I was really pretty upset with that.
Well, of course. I mean, if he was your right-hand man and now he's gone.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I would think also at DCI, he would be also your pipeline to that organization for the longest time, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. More and more relationships there.
So when you build a building from scratch, you've got to look at Joy at that point and go, okay, honey, we're in now. I mean, this is it. This is what we're doing. We're going to sink or swim here, right?
Yeah. Well, it was at that time when I started to think more about my underlying feelings of wanting to see more happen with the bands. And of course, I thought as we expand our business, we need to sell to bands. So it was a sticky time during that time because there was a conflict of drum corps people and band people. Lots of band people thought drum corps were bad, evil. Okay.
It was all filled with riffraff and ne'er-do-well.
Yeah, right. So there was this conflict going on, and I was trying to get into the band market to sell our products. And because we started to produce a magazine called The Director.
I remember that magazine. I didn't know that was you.
A tabloid that we produced, this huge, 17 by 11 tabloid for several years, mailed it directly to every band director in the country. So we had a mailing list. We mailed those things out, and lo and behold, people started buying stuff from us right and left.
Do you think, and I don't want you to put yourself on any kind of pedestal that you don't want to, but here's what I hear. Because of your efforts and what's happening right now at this point in your life when you mail that magazine out, it seems to me that would have been the switch when more and more schools started to switch over to that, what they called then, core style type of program.
There you go. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So that was an issue. Do we go core style or do we still do the Big Ten marching style? But corps were expanding and DCI was starting. And of course, they started at Whitewater. Their first shows were at Whitewater.
Yep.
I had this desire to see the bands do what drum corps could do and create the excellence that they could like drum corps. And so I had this concept of maybe we should start a thing called Marching Bands of America.
Joining us.
All right, let's take a moment for a quick break because I want to listen to some of your stories. Now, remember, if you've got a special Music for All or Bands of America memory or story, you can record it and be a part of this very 50th anniversary podcast. Just visit musicforall.org/podcast to contribute your story.
Hi, this is Mark Whitlock again. My next story is being a 20-year-old student attending BOA Grand Nationals for the first time in 1986. I went as a audience member and was thrilled to see such amazing bands. Just really let me know that there was much more out there than at my little spot in rural Kentucky. And I was blown away by Rocky Mount High School. It's still one of my favorite shows of all time. I remember specifically them doing Merry Wives of Windsor, and just an amazing part of the show where the low brass and the low woodwinds were featured in a soli moment, a melodic moment, which I had never experienced that as a low brass player. So that was pretty amazing. And I learned a little bit more about orchestration and things of that nature and voicing because of that. That was the moment where I was hooked on BOA and Music for All. So I get tingles just telling the story because I remember sitting in the audience just jaw dropped at the quality of sounds from these bands I was hearing, especially Rocky Mount for that year. And it was my first time what would later become a multi-decade adventure with Bands of America. And my next story is 1995 at the National Concert Band Festival. It was maybe my favorite moment with Bands of America. It's one of two or three, but it's really way up there. And I remember going to that arena, not knowing what to expect, but saw the names of the bands that were there. It was an all-star who's who list of some great, great bands representing different parts of the country. I don't know that I've ever been in a venue, including Midwest Clinic, that had that quality of bands in one place at one time. And so many years where that was the case, if I had to pick one, that's where I'm going. And so I was with Marian Catholic at this point, with Greg Bim. And I remember we were in such a phenomenal block of four bands. It was Etowanda, Marian Catholic, Lassiter, and Westfield. And it was just ridiculous programs of music. And that all the bands got to hear each other and the directors got to hear all the other bands and really bond with colleagues and have what I would call now informal PLCs, professional learning communities. We would just sit around and talk our passion all day, which was band. And so that was such a phenomenal experience for me. Never would have been possible without Music for All and Bands of America really, really investing in the foundational concert band music that every great program shares. So thank you, BOA, for that moment of creating something so special and so enduring.
Now, let's rejoin our conversation.
I had this desire to see the bands do what drum corps could do and create the excellence that they could like drum corps. And so I had this concept of maybe we should start a thing called Marching Bands of America.
Let me stop you right there because did you hear Mike Davis's interview when we talked to him?
I did.
So Mike Davis tells the perfect story of you two at a Midwest Combine show and basically leaning up against a fence, watching a program and you saying to him, hey, I think I want to do something like this. How close is that to what actually happened?
Mike's memory is a little different than mine, but...
well, all of us have our own version of a story.
Yeah,
I'm not
right,
saying that one's right or wrong, but...
But Mike and I were somewhat close because I was teaching Madison Scouts and he was involved with the Scouts to some degree.
Correct.
We were kind of close and he was teaching at Oregon High School. I don't know how that worked, but, I had this desire and to see excellence coming out of bands. And so I attribute it to the Lord gave me this idea. I didn't know it at the time, but he designed this thing for me to do. And when I decided to start the organization, I needed somebody who would help me, who was a strong individual. So this is another part of the story. So Gary Beckner was our first director. I hired him away from Slingerland Drums. Slingerland Drums and Gary and I produced a new drum called the TDR 100, which was a chrome field drum that, because of my following, everybody in the country wanted to have a TDR drum.
It was the hot new drum. Everybody had to have it as part of their line, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So one day on the phone with Gary and placing an order for a bunch of drums, I said, Gary, this thing has been bugging me. I think I'd like to try and start an organization called Bands of America. And he said, this sounds good to me. How would you do that? I said, well, I will use my profits that I've been making because I was starting to produce lots of income.
Yeah.
And use that money to get it started. But I need a guy. So what do you think about coming to work for me? So I hired him away from Slingerland. And this is part of my team building. So he was the second part of my team with Nick Valenziano and Nick, who was a college band director at Illinois Chicago Circle.
Yeah.
And my lifetime buddy from high school. We played jobs together, dance band jobs with a group called the Val McRoydens. So Gary came to work and we set out the plan to create the Bands of America organization.
And so in your mind, and then Marching Bands of America, because you hadn't really...
It was marching band.
Yeah, MBA is what came out of the box.
Yeah.
How do you go from, hey, I have this idea, to getting people to actually come and create a show? Was the Whitewater Show in 1976 your first effort at that? The first one that was called the Grand Nationals? Or was there a show prior to that?
It was called Summer Nationals. It wasn't Grand Nationals until
Jacksonville, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first show was Summer Nationals. The very first gathering of bands was Summer Nationals?
Right. Now, there was a group of bands that had been competing during the summer, a small group of Midwestern bands, including people like Paul Brizzy in Oskaloosa, Iowa, Oregon High School.
They had that Midwest Combine they had already established, right?
Right. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you reach out to them right away and say, hey, come do this?
Well, of course. I said, we're going to do this show. So it's going to be at Whitewater and we need you guys to want to come and be a part of it. So we got them together and a bunch of them came. The Dundee Scots, Doyle Heffron.
The Dundee Scots. Boy, I haven't thought of that band in forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what kind of representation was there at that first show state-wise? You clearly had Illinois, you had Iowa, you had Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Was it pretty much that?
Yeah, the first show, Cam Stasa marched in that show. Yeah.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. So the first show went reasonably well. Gary Beckner brought in a sponsor for us because we needed finance. So that's how we got connected with Beatrice Foods.
That's right. And so, but that first show in Whitewater was called Summer Nationals, and that person was the Summer National champion. There's something I recall many years later asking Scott or someone about Grand National Championships, that we never, ever said that the winner of Grand Nationals was the national champion. We weren't the national championship. The name of the show was the Grand National Championships. Did you have that sort of, was that what you were trying to adopt at that first Summer Nationals? You are the Summer National champion. You're not the national champion. Am I on target there?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Because it would be presumptuous to say you're the national champion out of a band show of 4 bands.
Sure. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I forgot actually when we turned it around and started calling people the champions, but Yeah, just a little foggy for me.
Well, for all of us, it's been a long time.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So you've got McCormick's up and running, and now you've started a division of McCormick's called Marching Bands of America. How does then Dr. Tim comes into the picture, right? And then does camp come up after that?
Well,
Because you were doing Weekend with the Experts. You had all kinds of things going on in those early days.
yeah, that was a little later. Yeah, that was one of my other visions was we need to educate the band directors how to do what we do. So I started producing films, videotapes of how to do color guard, how to do this, how to do percussion. So these were short films, and Joe Costello was my film guy. He and I produced those films, and we started marketing them through our Director magazine. Okay. And of course, band directors were starting to jump on board and buy stuff from us. And so the Beatrice Foods thing is a really important piece. When Gary was able to get the sponsorship of Beatrice, they gave away our first Summer Nationals trophy, I remember.
Wow.
And we have pictures of that in the Director. And I was starting to use up all of our profits, and I was running low and starting to run out of money and going, okay, how am I going to be able to continue doing this? So I had to go into Beatrice, and the president of Beatrice Foods in Chicago, his name was Wallace Rasmussen. And Wallace Rasmussen came to the first show that we had, and he saw it and presented the trophy. So he knew what we were doing.
Right.
And he was kind of favorable to this is a healthy thing. So I started to keep track of how much money I was spending from my company to keep this thing going. And I said, I've got like $60,000 already put into it. What am I going to do? So I decided to go in to meet with Wallace Rasmussen and his right-hand guy. And I said, Wallace, I'm sorry I have to bring this to you, but if you can't help me, I'm going to have to shut down Marching Bands of America because I can't afford to keep doing this. And he said, well, let me know what it is. I said, well, I've kept track of all of the expenses, all the profits I put into it. I said, it amounts to like $65,000. So he says to his guy, would you go and have them write a check for $65,000 for Mr. McCormick?
Are you kidding me?
So
Just like that.
just like that.
Why is it not that easy today? Why is it not that easy today? Larry, I tried and tried and tried and tried to get that level of sponsorship for Bands of America and never even came close.
Yeah.
And you have the kind of charisma that you could just walk in the door and say, I need 65K. And they're like, is a check okay?
Well, fortunately, he had seen it, so he
Yeah.
saw what it was, and he was favorable to the concept that, we're reaching young people,
Right.
and they're putting their names on milk cartons. They're putting their names on Royal Crown Cola that they produced. So
Wow. How long did that relationship last with Beatrice?
until Gary Beckner left me to start their own organization,
Oh, that's right. That was the Music Bowl.
the Music Bowl was going to be a Chicago thing. So Gary left to do that. They lasted for a year or two, maybe 3. I don't think they were terribly successful. All of that kind of fell apart, but we were still doing our thing.
I have to tell you, when I was in high school, we participated in a Music Bowl event. It was at the University of Cincinnati.
Okay.
And we thought it was a big deal.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, NBA was still a bigger deal in all of our minds. I mean, it was like, well, this is nice, but this isn't NBA. And I want you to know that from me personally, that was something that regardless of what sponsors come and sponsors go sort of thing, the level of excellence associated with Marching Bands of America and what you created was always at the top of the pyramid, always.
Yes. Well, that was, of course, my goal was to reach excellence. And what I see them doing these days just blows my mind.
What the kids are capable of. I know. The last time I spoke to you was 2023.
Right.
You and Joy came up to the booth to hang out a little bit. And I remember specifically asking you, did you ever imagine it would become this?
Yeah. Well, I didn't imagine the quality would come to that.
Crazy.
I imagined that it would be that big, but I couldn't fathom what the bands are doing these days. Yeah. Just blows me away.
At what point did you bring Dr. Tim on board? And then I've got to understand how you came to know Bob Buckner as well.
Oh, Well, so Tim, another story. Tim was teaching at Missouri. He had his people, some of the people we've already talked about, Kevin Lepper and Norm Rubling.
Norm Rubling?
Yeah, was another one. Tim decided to come up to my new building. Okay. He wrote me a letter first. He said, I'd like to bring my kids up to see your facility. He said, I'm quoting, I'm a hot dog like you, whatever that meant.
I can hear him saying it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, he brought the kids up, and they were college students and his following, and met in my office, and we talked for a bit. And I went, okay. So we had some kind of relationship. Later on, how did I come to hire him? We were in communication, writing letters back and forth from time to time. He went to New Mexico. I decided that he might be a good member of our team. So,
did he have that same charisma he has today? I'm assuming he did.
Oh, like he said, he was a hot dog.
Yeah, he is a hot dog.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was on fire. And he had his following at New Mexico, and all of his kids that from Missouri followed him to New Mexico. And so anyways, I said, Tim, I want to come and see you. So I'm going to fly in I was at the Texas Band Directors or something. I said, I'm going to catch a plane and fly in to see you. So he said, yeah, well, that's good. We have a concert in a church here, and you can see the percussion ensemble. I said, oh, that'd be terrific. That resulted in me saying to Tim, hey, Tim, why don't you think about coming to work for me? So I don't remember exactly what it was, but it took a while before him to make that decision. But sooner or later, he said, oh, okay, why don't we go together to this regional contest that's going to be in Harrisonburg, Virginia? So he and I drove to Harrisonburg to our first regional.
A regional marching band contest?
Right.
Was this an MBA contest?
Yes.
So, okay, well, I need to back up a little bit then. So we've got that first event that happened in Whitewater. That event continues forward. At what point did you decide to take that show on the road then?
Oh, we decided to do regionals. So
almost immediately?
Well, no. I had a team now, people that were working with me and for me, several of which were former band directors. And so discussions about what we are going to do next, we need to do regional competitions. So that was the Harrisonburg show, and Tim and I drove to it, and it was around Thanksgiving time, I think. Yeah. And one of the people at the show was Bob Buckner. Okay.
And thus it begins.
Yeah, right. So suddenly we're connecting people to people, and everybody is like loving each other. Yeah.
Was Bob a director then at Silva Webster?
Yes.
Okay. And then he brought his band up to Whitewater, and basically the rest is history.
Reluctantly to Whitewater, not knowing what he was going to run into, and clean the clock.
So the regionals, once you had the big event in Whitewater established, the regionals spawn off after that, and they're clearly a way to market for the big show in Whitewater then, right? Or is everything its own independent thing, all focused back toward the store?
Yeah. Well, money was from the store. Yeah.
Yeah, because Bands of America wasn't a nonprofit at that point. It was a division of McCormick's Enterprises.
Right. Right.
At what point did it get to a spot where you're like, this needs to do its own thing? I mean, it's growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger and getting legs. And now MBA is on everybody's lips. I mean, by the late 70s, early 80s, there wasn't a band person in the country, I think, that didn't know what Marching Bands of America was and what it was all about.
Yeah, that's because of our magazine. So, I mean, they were getting mailings with educational articles in the magazine, as well as trying to produce sales of products, and people were flocking to us. So, like you said, it was up and rolling.
And that's one of the things I think that the world needs to understand is that your drive isn't just sales here. Your drive is education. I've heard you say it several times as we've been talking. Educational articles, weekend with the experts.
How-to films.
Do a drum clinic here. I mean, it was always about education, wasn't it?
I guess I'm a teacher at heart. So, yeah, the success I had with the Cavaliers teaching them, and my junior high band was a pretty good band, and all of that. So I guess it was the teacher heart in me that was there. So
at what point do you decide to break it off into its own nonprofit?
Well, This is a period in my life where it starts to get really tough. I have 37 people working for me.
Wow. That's a big group.
In my new building, which we built in Arlington Heights, now I have 16,000 square feet of warehouse and 6,000 square feet of offices. Okay, I have 37 people that I have paychecks going to every 2 weeks. So we need to turn lots of cash. So
That's a lot of people counting on you
yeah,
for their living. Yes.
I'm starting to feel the pressure. So I'm having a midlife crisis. Okay. I'm going, how can I continue to do this? I'm just really tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore. So 1983 was probably the beginning of my midlife crisis. Scott is now here working with us. Kevin is now another strange thing. Don Pescioni, who was DCI's director, they were trying to produce videos and sell them of their contest. He was doing a very poor job of it. So Kevin enters the picture, and Kevin wants to do videos not only for us, we're doing instant videos.
Yep.
So people can walk away after the show with a video of their performance.
I remember all those. 1-800 Video Express forever.
Right.
Yep.
So Kevin becomes 800 Video Express. We start to sell Pescioni on the idea of let us do your videos. So Kevin is now producing videos for DCI as well. Okay. So we got that going. We got Bands America going. And I'm running out of cash and going, now what? Yeah. So I, in the middle of that crisis, I guess, lots of prayer, lots of taking my car, go sitting in the woods, just meditating, thinking, Lord, what do you have for me?
Right.
Where am I going from here? Kind of at the end of my rope and said, I want to get rid of the company.
In this moment, you think to yourself, I have to step away, but you have something here that's bigger than you at this point.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's you've got to think this is something special we've created. You're already getting that sort of feedback from everybody about, wow,
yes,
this Marching Bands of America thing is incredible.
Yeah. But, financing of it is the difficult part.
Right.
Because
right.
I have to meet my payroll every 2 weeks. So I'm not a person who likes to borrow money. So my financial advisors are saying, the only way you're going to grow is you're going to have to borrow money. So I would go to the bank and borrow money and pay it back when the season opened and we started selling products. But there was a period of time when we didn't have money to pay the payroll, but all of my employees got their checks. I didn't get a check. So
wow,
I'm starting to really feel the pain of it all.
Of course.
And in spite of Bands of America doing well, there was no financial backing because Beatrice is gone. And it's only my money that's going into it.
So the events are self-sustaining? They're not making enough money on themselves to pay for themselves at that point?
No. And of course, my son, Scott, bless his heart, is wanting to expand all the time. He's wanting to go.
Yes, that is true.
Music for all. Yeah. And we're connecting with now people in Indianapolis. So now we're looking at the Dome. We're going to go to the Dome to have a contest. And we're there as they're building the Hoosier Dome. And I'm looking around and going, this is where we're going to have a contest in this place? Yeah.
Yeah, how are we going to afford that?
Yeah. Right. So all of this connects. Where does it go from here? The Janiks. Dick Janik, who was my vice president. My sales manager was Pat Hayes. Incredible people. Dick and his wife were our first announcers.
That's right. I was just going to say, sidebar, Dick Janik was the announcer prior to me at the shows.
He was the predecessor to you, right?
Yep.
He was the voice of Bands of America.
He was the voice of Bands of America. And what a voice he had, too.
Yeah. So in my depression I'm going through now, what am I going to do? I don't want to do this company thing anymore. I just want to produce educational videos. So my other company, Sharper Video Productions, is going to produce master teacher videos. Okay, I hire Tom Blair. You know that name?
Yes.
Tom Blair becomes my
Yes.
editor.
Yeah. Emmy Award winning Tom Blair. Yeah.
Yes. Tom Blair becomes my editor in my studio now that I have in my office, which is now I have Bands of America, I have McCormick's Enterprises, and I have Sharper Video Productions. Okay.
All this time having a financial crisis at the same time.
I'm up to my ears in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I decided that I want to move my company, sell my company, or shut the doors.
Yeah. Those are your options, right? It either stops or someone else takes it from here.
I sat with Dick Janik and across from my desk, and I said, Dick, I just want out. The pressure is too much. I can't deal with this anymore. He said, well, let me see if I can figure out some way to buy the company.
Just like that.
I said, it's going to take a fair amount of money to do that. You think you could do that? Fortunately, he was able to make an arrangement with a bank, pay it off on a period of time. He and Robin, they bought the company.
Wow.
So McCormick's Enterprises is now in my building using the space downstairs. Bands of America and Sharper Video Productions are upstairs. So we're all existing in this building. Okay. And I'm starting to feel freedom. So I recover.
And Bands of America is still not a nonprofit at this point.
Right, right.
Bands of America is still operating as a company, as a for-profit organization, correct?
As a part of McCormick's Enterprises. So
okay,
it's a strain for McCormick's Enterprises to keep supporting them.
Right, because it's still just hemorrhaging money, I'm assuming.
Yes. So that's when I said, okay, why don't we divide this? And Scott's going, I'm ready. Let me take care of it. Let me do it. Yeah. Yeah.
How old was Scott at this point? In his 20s still, early 30s maybe?
Oh, no. He was just finished a degree at Northern University with Lisa Preston.
Because we're about the same age, Scott and I.
Yeah, right. So he's eager, as he said numerous times. I caught my dad's vision.
Yep, he sure did.
Yeah. So he said, I'm going to do it. So struggling onward, I said, okay, we're giving you and Kevin the company. You and Kevin are now going to run it. Kevin can do the video. He'll do that division of it, and you can do the contest.
Is that when it was reorganized as a 501c3?
That's when Scott decided to petition to make it a 501c3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What a great move that was.
Yeah.
What a great move that was.
So between that and the bills that we would run up at the University of Whitewater, and one of our board of directors who was so kind to carry that load of the bill that we couldn't pay off, and Scott was, wanting to pay it off, but they didn't have the funds. We stuck through.
There's been a lot of people who put their hand in this, it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
I have a question for you regarding that first board of directors, because I understand you had some pretty big names on your first board of directors for Bands of America, like William Ravelli and Stan Kenton were two of them. How does one get Stan Kenton to be on a board of directors for a brand new nonprofit?
Well, Stan Kenton was a part of one of our films that we made. So he was gracious enough to let us film him and talk about marching bands. So we sat him down in a chair when his band was here in town and said, here's what we'd like you to say. We're going to put the camera on you and you can say it as you choose. So he was gracious enough to do that. And we said, we'd like to put you on our board of directors, at least your name. He says, wonderful. So he never really attended any meetings or anything.
But it was in name only. Was it the same true with William Ravelli?
No, because Ravelli came in and saw our camps. So he was a part of giving the awards away.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Larry, the organization that you created is going to be 50 years old soon.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? What level of, I can't imagine what just wells up in your chest when you think about where the organization is today that you started.
I am so humbled. And I know it's just something the Lord had in mind for me to do. And because I guess I had the wherewithal, the fortitude, I came up with a bunch of C words that I said. It came up for me as I was thinking about talking to you.
Yeah.
The word competition, Competition is a breeding ground for excellence. Communication, our newsletters, our tabloids, courage, confidence, team building, vision casting, and investing in your vision. All of those come up for me.
Yeah.
That's what it was all about.
I can still see your face staring out of my press box booth in Lucas Oil Stadium in 2023, just scanning that building and only imagining how you feel.
Yeah.
That this is what it is today. It's got to be, I don't even know where to begin to describe how you must feel to have created something that is literally your legacy.
Well, it is a McCormick family legacy because all of my family was involved in the process in one way or another.
Is there something you would want the world to know that I haven't asked you about regarding either the formation of Bands of America or where it is today or where you'd like to see it go in the next 50 years?
It's kind of at its ebb as far as I'm concerned. It's like incredible. I don't know where it will continue to go, but I'm grateful for the people that were behind the scenes. I mean, Cam Statha, Debbie Lafferty, Dick Janik, Robin Janik, Pat Hayes, all of the people from my company, just amazing people, good people who were willing to follow. Okay. I talk about casting vision. So apparently I was able to cast the vision and they followed. Yeah.
I think you did. I know I bought into it hook, line, and sinker, my friend.
Yeah. Bottom line, though, is what it does for kids.
Yeah.
You know, what it does to give them the experience of that success, even if they don't win, even if they don't make finals. What they produce just blows my mind. I'm so grateful for that. Yeah.
You're bringing tears to my eyes, my friend. Larry McCormick, thank you so very much for spending time out of your day with me today. This has meant everything to me, and I hope you've enjoyed the experience. And again, thank you for everything you've done for music education.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chuck. And for you also, producer Patrick, thank you. And I'm looking forward to the rest of these podcasts. You do a fantastic job, Chuck.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, love you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Joining Us podcast. We are celebrating 50 years of Music for All and Bands of America. Do you have your own story or memory to share? Well, I want to hear it. You can record your own story by visiting musicforall.org/podcasts. We may just include your voice in a future episode. Hey, thanks to Yamaha, our national presenting sponsor, and don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to the Music for All Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank Ben and Laura from the team at Music for All for making this happen and lining up all of our guests. And of course, the way it sounds, that's the magic of our executive producer, Patrick Keller. I'm Chuck Henson. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week on Joining Us.
Joining us from Avon, Indiana,